My name is Jade, owner and principal planner of Joyful Events by Jade, and this is The Cookie Table. This is a podcast all about love, marriage, relationships, and the wedding industry, wedding news. Perfect for anyone that is getting married, is married, a wedding vendor, or someone that just loves weddings. Grab your favorite cookie from The Cookie Table, pour yourself a glass of Chardonnay, and let's get into it. Angela Laskovics, Angela Pro Design, thank you so much for joining The Cookie Table.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for getting coffee with me the other week, too. It's been such a pleasure meeting you and getting to know you. You're another Lady Locks fan.
Mm-hmm. It's very nostalgic for me.
It is.
Yeah, my grandma always used to bring them to holidays and birthday parties and stuff, so yeah. It has a place in my heart.
Very Pittsburgh. Thank you, Grandview Bakery, as always, for the cookies. Our current cookie tally, we're at 2 chocolate chips, 1 kolache, which I think I butcher every time I say it. And you're the second Lady Locks. You're the second Lady Locks, which I'm sure there's going to be a ton more of those because they're very Pittsburgh, very popular.
Yes.
I love it. So tell me about you. Tell me about how you got your start. You are a stationer. That's the correct term?
Stationer, graphic designer, stationery designer, anything in that realm works.
Perfect. Tell me all about your story.
Okay. So Angela Pro Design. Like you said, I'm a wedding and event stationer and branding expert. And expert in my opinion. And
love it.
And I specialize in weddings and events. Mainly when people think of stationery design, they think wedding invitations. Yep. That's like, the biggest thing that I do. But we also do anything day of, escort cards, signage, anything pre and post wedding. So save the dates, anything for a shower. Thank you cards. And then also when I say branding, sometimes people want a custom monogram made or something else that they kind of use throughout their wedding to keep it on brand and keep everything cohesive. So we do that as well.
I like that. If you get someone for invitations, do you usually get them for everything else through the thank you card at the very end?
Usually when I start working with somebody for invitations, they just realize that it's just easy to keep it cohesive and just, pass it off to you. I don't require that. Mm-hmm. Some stationers require that. I do not.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
It's whatever they want. It's their wedding.
Cohesiveness is very important. Okay?
It is.
As a wedding planner, and I think some people get upset with the word designer when it comes from a wedding planner for whatever reason. No, I'm not Joe Mineo Creative, obviously. But I do things based on, because everyone needs help design-wise, not everyone. But the people that need help design-wise, there's someone out there for everyone to help them with that. So I do help a lot of my couples kind of figure out the cohesive design of their wedding, right? And people that just kind of go off the hook a little bit, and they're just like, well, I'm just going to get this from Etsy, and then I'm just going to do this. And I'm like, you hurt my heart a little bit every time you do it. So cohesiveness is key, and Angela will keep it cohesive for you throughout the entire way, which I love that.
Yes.
That's important. So you started somewhere, you worked for a corporation.
Yes.
As graphic design.
Yeah, so I graduated with my degree in graphic design, and then I couldn't find a graphic design job, so I worked in a restaurant for a few years, and then finally I was able to get a job at, it's like a mid-size industrial technology company. They were looking for somebody who could handle all the admin stuff, but they wanted somebody with a degree in design because they, like any small to medium-sized company, they wanted somebody to wear many hats. Mm-hmm. So they wanted somebody who could do like in-house design for, line cards and product literature and stuff like that. Eventually mess with their website. I redid their logo at one point. And also kind of start to get into some of their marketing. So I started off with like an email newsletter and stuff and kind of worked my way up. I was there for almost 10 years, and it was a great start because I wasn't super micromanaged, so I was able to continue to learn and take classes and play with stuff and figure out what I liked and what worked and what didn't. So yeah, that was a really, I think, a good start. And also, I was able to start Angela Pro Design on the side as like a side hustle. So by day I was doing like B2B marketing and design for industrial technology stuff. And then on the side, I was doing anything I could get my hands on. Yeah. So I was trying to build up my portfolio and get to work with different kinds of clients on some fun stuff. And yeah, it was a great way to start into any kind of design career, I would say.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that's perfect. A lot of us obviously start with having our side jobs. Like this starts as a side job.
Oh, yeah.
It always does. If it doesn't, I feel like you're low-key lying. Like you're literally lying. But having that position where you can do both is massive. And I know that's hard and that can be a privilege. I was the same way. I worked for my husband. So it was like having two parallel full-time jobs in a way. Like I basically put like, 6 hours each a day type of thing to each. So that's huge because then that kind of gives you that jump to start to focus even heavier and it launches harder. I don't know. It's just a big deal. So I love that for you.
Yeah. And it gets like you can experiment and kind of figure out where your niche really is and what you're actually passionate about instead of, just 100%. Launching yourself into the world and then changing your mind in 6 months. You want to go down a different path. So
it's a great start. Random question. People that use Canva, how do you feel about that? As a true graphic designer who uses Adobe and you're doing the thing.
Okay. So, okay. Here's the thing. I can appreciate that Canva exists and that people use it. Since I'm trained in Adobe products, Canva could be the death of me. Like it's not as, I can't do what I want with it so easily. So it drives me insane.
Okay.
I don't like to work with it. I also have heard a little bit about, the talk about copywriting and like, using something that has templates and, you didn't necessarily fully custom design.
Right. Can get
a little sketchy when it comes to business stuff, especially if you're using it to like create your logo for your business. Yeah. I would hate for it to come bite somebody in the butt down the line and then have to start all over again. But you do you, whatever works for you. I feel like when you're working with somebody on a lot of the stuff you can do in Canva, basically branding stuff. It's not just about like creating something that looks good. There's a lot of psychology behind it, really. Different colors have different connotations, and are you thinking about scale? And so yeah, there's just like any job, there's a reason to work with somebody who has experience and expertise in it.
Exactly.
But if you're getting off the ground and that's what you can do, then hey, it's better than nothing.
What are some limitations that you have found that you feel limited using Canva versus Adobe if you have messed with it or tried it at all from a design standpoint?
Honestly, it's mainly just like technical stuff. Like I want to be able to select what I want to select and like change it to a different color code without like, I hate the way that they have the layers and it's just, I don't know. I can't use it as quickly as something, which, if I was trained in Canva and not in the other thing, it would be the same way. So,
I think that's saying a lot though, because Adobe's like a foreign language. It's insane.
It's
like
complex.
Photoshop and all that. Like I think it's crazy.
It's complex, but you have so much capability to to be in control. And I feel like you're not as in control in Canva, and that's what drives me nuts.
Well, I think you saying that copywriting issues is more than enough. So don't build your logo in Canva. Clearly, go to Angela.
Yeah, go to me.
Please go to Angela. So you and I are both parents.
Yes.
We're both moms, and not to always bring that up or that be my whole personality, but
it's a big part.
It's a very big part of life. It's a very big part of business. And you're a boy mom too. You have two boys?
2 boys, 6 and 4.
And they're wild.
Wild, you know. It's exhausting and wonderful.
Boys are wild. And I already feel this because even last night my husband was like, he doesn't stop referring to our child. I was like, honey, I don't know what you want me to tell you. He wants a boy so bad because men just want to carry on their name, old school feeling, right? He's like, oh, I just love the little boy. Okay, but now you're the one that's like, he needs to sit down.
Yeah, calm down. We get it.
It's like they don't.
Yeah,
they don't.
No, it's fun, but it is a lot. It is a lot. And I had sisters. I never had a brother. So when we first found out I was having Wesley, my oldest, I was like, I don't know, boys. This is new. Mm-hmm. But now I couldn't imagine it any other way. So
I couldn't either. I couldn't either. And you and I are very, very similar when it comes to just kind of how we feel about. We're very realistic and honest, I think, about being moms, which is a good thing. I don't think a lot of people put it out there because you feel guilty when you say certain things, or you're just like, man, yeah. I don't know, I'm supposed to be perfect as a mother. It was just like, well, this shit's hard, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you're running your own business. It's really hard, but there's a lot of really, really positive attributes that becoming a parent helps you be a better business owner.
Yeah, 1,000%. I really struggled. I hate that we don't talk enough about the true struggles of parenthood because, putting this pretty facade on and just talking about oh, look at I can make peanut butter and jellies that look like pumpkins.
Swear to God, though.
That is not... That's not
really
what we're really struggling with. But yeah, I talk openly about it. I think we need to do more of that because once I started talking about it, I found that a lot of people I knew were in the same situation I was. I struggled with antenatal and postpartum depression and anxiety. We were so excited to get pregnant. We wanted to get pregnant. We tried, but once I had those hormones in my body, I just had all these feelings. I was just really anxious and everything. And then I also already had Angela Pro Design. So, I think most entrepreneurs, that was my first baby. I put everything into it.
Yep.
And then you have human babies and they also need your everything. And trying to split that, it was a big internal struggle for me.
Yes, me too.
And I felt like no matter what I did, I was losing. I was taking away from something. And I really, it got me down. And even though, thankfully, it didn't seem to be coming across to any clients or anybody I worked with or anything. I didn't feel like they saw me slipping at all.
Right.
I felt like I was much shittier at my job because I couldn't give everything to it anymore. And one day I was just like, you know what? I need to look at this differently.
Yep.
And there really are so many things that being a parent teaches you and makes you improve.
Tell me some of those.
Patience, empathy. I think that empathy is actually really important working in the wedding industry. It's a very emotional time in that couple's life, and just being able to be aware of that and be their rock whenever they need somebody to be steady for them. Troubleshooting. What else? Multitasking. Oh my goodness.
Big one.
Yeah. So I think there are a lot of things that I have gotten much better at as a business owner, and especially working in the wedding industry since becoming a parent. And I just have to remind myself of that sometimes.
That you're crushing it.
I try.
Crushing it.
I try.
Those are all huge ones. Patience for sure.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Because you're just constantly tested all day long.
All day.
I talked about this a little bit with Emily. It's really hard for me personally when I get someone calling me randomly that wasn't on my schedule.
Yes.
And that's a personality thing, like partially as well. But people have no idea that I'm in the middle of trying to feed my very young toddler who is throwing food on the ground, which pisses me. It's the one thing that makes me so mad. I hate it. Every time he throws food, I try to ignore it. I try to do what all the experts say, like whatever it is. Oh, food stays on the table, honey. Food stays on the table. And then my phone starts ringing, and it's something that could have been a 5-minute conversation or email, a quick email. I mean, like, I'm like, why? Like, so a lot of the time I won't answer, but when I see, sometimes I'll have mothers of the bride call me because they just have a quick question, which is fine. I don't want you to feel like you can't call me. It's just we all are doing like these parallel kind of double lives at the same time.
We're fitting it in now.
We're fitting it in. We're absolutely fitting it in. And it's like, if you call me and I feel annoyed or I don't respond super happy, hey, what's going on? Like sometimes it's like this quick, like, hey, what can I do for you? Oh, nothing. And like there's been times too where I had a groom call me and he's like, like he could hear my kid screaming in the background. He's like, how's everything going? I'm like, I'm just kind of in the middle of something. What can I do for you?
Living the dream.
Like, everything's great. But it's just, it's hard, man. It's tiring. It's testing patience. It's all of it. But instead of couples being nervous to book people that are a parent, because we've talked about this before about being afraid to disclose you're a parent sometimes before booking or at that consultation process because you think they'll judge you or they'll be like, oh, that person can't give me the attention because they're a mom or a dad. But to be honest, like you said, no one, I think, notices to be truly.
Especially with what I do. I mean, you guys are much more like client facing. There are clients that I literally never meet in person sometimes because everything can be done via email, especially since COVID. Now we're starting to get back into like some in-person consultations and stuff or handoffs in person. Yeah. But yeah, it's sometimes whenever they do request, Zoom calls or whatever, that's when I do have to say, hey, my kiddo might be in the background or, yes, I can meet you for handoff. But I might have my boys with me, just so you know. So it's not normally an issue with what I do.
Right.
For me, it's more of an issue with like me trying to set boundaries and like I don't want people to know that I might be working at 10 o'clock at night. I don't really want to send them emails so that they are aware of that. Just because I want to have some sort of boundary in place, like you said, so that they don't think that, they can expecting, I'm expecting people to contact me on the weekend, at night. But like, that's when I have to work. So, except for when my older son is at school now, I get a little bit of downtime, but for a lot of what I do, it's at night. So yeah, it's a challenge to set boundaries and make sure that at least they see boundaries.
That's a really good point because you're right. They'll be seeing those 10 o'clock p.m. timestamps on the email so they know that you were probably responding at that time or whatever the case is. That's a really good point.
Perfect at it. I mean, I definitely still will send emails or, if something's on my mind and I want to ask a question, I'm not going to not do it and then forget and then be like, I'm terrible. I can't believe I forgot to ask. But yeah, I mean, it's a struggle. But
it's a struggle.
You do what you can.
When you're in this position, you don't realize how many other people are in this position. And it was funny because last night I sat down at 9 o'clock because I said to my husband, I was like, oh my goodness, I forgot to send an important email today. That was like a deadline thing. And I was like, can you read him a book for bedtime? And I ran on my computer. And as soon as I sat down, I'm not kidding, I had like 2 other emails pop up from other vendors. And I was like,
oh, they got me.
Yeah. I was like, 1, now I got to respond. 2, you're doing it too. Yeah. You're responding at 9 o'clock at night. So.
Oh, yeah. Especially with like other vendors like me and Allie from Wonderlust. She lives very near me. And we're good friends. And we'll text each other at like 10 o'clock at night. Hey, can you send me that thing? And we know we're up. She has 2 little boys too. She does. So yeah.
we're all doing it. Yeah. So obviously being a mom makes you a better business person, or so we think.
I believe, yeah.
So I think, booking parent vendors is actually a good thing for you. But also book professionals.
Absolutely.
Obviously.
Yes.
Angela and I, we both like to think we're professionals. I'm a professional.
We try.
We try. As a professional, you know things that people that aren't professionals don't. And I think especially couples that are buying a template off of Etsy or trying to DIY their wedding invitations, there are a lot of mailing specifications that people have zero idea exist. So I want you to educate couples on that.
So there are a lot of stationers who don't always get this right too, because
which is scary.
Yes. I mean, so that when you say professional, I think it's really important that, it is a professional. But at the same time, I mean, DIY couples, that's okay if that's their thing. If they want to do it, what I do is mostly custom stationery, and that's not for everybody.
Yep.
It's not for every budget. Some people want to be more involved with creating stuff like that, and that's fine. But if you do want to work with a stationer, you're mainly paying, I would say, like, yes, you're paying for design and knowledge in that, but you're also paying for like peace of mind.
Yep.
And that especially comes with mailing, because USPS is a challenge. So, well, it's not as simple too as like, I'll have couples say, okay, do you know how much that's going to weigh?
Yeah.
Well, even if I did, it's not just about weight. Square invitations have an upcharge. If it's too thick, it has an upcharge. If it's too big, it's considered a large envelope. It might even be a parcel, non-machinable. Like, there are so many things. So I have a guy, Gary. Gary at the post office. Shout out to Gary. And I take everything to him to weigh and tell me, the total price I need, all the postage to add up to, and then we go from there. But and unfortunately, sometimes couples want to have like more control over what postage stamps are used.
Yeah.
And I understand, totally understand. Like, obviously, I want everything to look pretty. Like, that's kind of what I do. But at the same time, and USPS, I wish they had better options for weddings every year. They usually come out with like one floral design, and that's kind of it. And sometimes it's sold out in the summer and peak wedding season. And
stamps are terrible.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I just don't understand. Like, our generation, we aren't writing letters to our family members, or like, even when we're paying bills, like, we're usually not writing checks and mailing them. Like, we really use postage stamps for events and holidays. So I wish USPS would like collaborate with some stationery designers every year and come out with like some, like, at least 5 or 6, options that are, neutral colors, pretty, go with wedding trends. And I would love to be paid for it, but they don't even have to pay. Like, they could hold a contest and be like, submit your designs and we'll pick 6 every year.
Oh, I love that idea.
So yeah, I wish there was more like thinking of their audience, and it's kind of stuck back in the day a little bit. Like, I don't need a Buzz Lightyear stamp.
No, thank you.
Unless it's a birthday party for the kiddos, but
which is still very polarizing.
Even still, or like a dead poet, or like it's challenging, but.
There's a lot of websites out there that make it seem like you can buy a stamp from them, and that's a little scary. So you actually kind of can't, right?
Yes, and it leads to that too, where couples are like, "Oh, I'll find something I like on the internet," and you can source, vintage stamps. But what unfortunately ends up happening sometimes is they find these stamps on Amazon or Etsy or, anywhere, and they look legit. And then they use them and they send out all of their stuff. They spend hundreds of dollars and everything comes back to them because they weren't actually legit USPS stamps.
That's scary.
And it's almost impossible to tell sometimes. So yeah, there are places that are kind of more well-known in like stationer groups and stuff where you can source vintage stamps. But that gets tricky too, because like if you need 100 of them or 200 of them, trying to get like the same ones in that quantity can be difficult. So it adds a lot of time to mailing your invitations too. Yeah. Because we need to weigh it once it's done printing and everything, and then we need to source the stamps. So, and I mean, I hate to say this, but like, do you remember a single stamp on anything you've ever gotten in your life? I mean,
absolutely not.
I get it from the couple's point of view, like they want it to be pretty, and that I think that's important. Yes. But as a guest, I mean, if it's going to delay sending out your invitations or like, put a hiccup in your timeline at all, right? It's really not worth it. No. Use what's available.
So that kind of brings us to a little bit like the downfall, I think, of Pinterest, if you think there is one when it comes to stationery. So that kind of ties in all of the expectations of timelines for invitations and pretty stamps that are on Pinterest. And so many things, I think. So obviously Pinterest can be a good thing. There's a lot of good inspiration on it.
Absolutely.
Do you have a lot of couples come to you with these really high or really incorrect expectations because of Pinterest? Or you think it could be because of Pinterest?
I wouldn't say a lot.
Yeah.
But it definitely happens. I think styled shoots are to blame for that, which I love styled shoots. But you just, as a professional, need to manage your clients' expectations. Right. So I think just explaining to them, like, why that might not be in their budget or why that might not be just practical. Usually people are responsive to that.
Yep. That's good.
But Pinterest, inspiration is also extremely important, obviously, in anything design. So I'm a big fan of Pinterest. That being said, it can be a little sad whenever somebody's like, I'm obsessed with these, a custom named acrylic place cards in 5 different colors with gold ink. Can you do that for my 500 person wedding? And it's like, well, if your budget's like $1 million, then we can talk. But I wouldn't recommend that. Yeah. It's going to be $1 bajillion. So yeah, just a lot of what's out there now is very high end and very expensive. And I think people are already kind of sticker shocked with how much everything in weddings costs nowadays.
It's tough.
It's so much. Like, I got married in 2016, and even like since then, it has just gone so up.
It's crazy.
So yeah, just managing expectations, and I think that's part of our job. So,
I was just going to say, being a professional, when you have professionals, they can help you, guide you through those expectations and what we can actually do in your budget. And something that is trending heavily right now, I think, is that letterpress look. Is that, how expensive is that? Because I feel like that's kind of custom. Tell me how that works a little bit.
So the way letterpress works is they actually create a copper metal die that is then, ink is put on it and it's stamped into a paper. That's why it's depressed. So in order to create that copper die, that's what makes it more specialty. That's what adds time to the timeline. Like, you can't overnight letterpress unless it's like a place where usually a printer has to outsource the die. So it depends on where you go. There are some printers, and I work with some of them often, that are more, they're they're more budget friendly when it comes to letterpress. They actually, I believe, create their dies in-house. So that's how they're able to do that.
Yep.
But they're limited with what papers they offer.
Okay.
So it's tricky. Like, you have to figure out what's most important to them. Like,
right.
Are they really obsessed with a certain kind of paper? Like, do they want handmade paper? Or are they okay with this one of two options for cotton paper? That can actually be the difference between hundreds of dollars.
Yep.
Because if I can go with this printer, your letterpress is going to be significantly lower cost than this printer that will take any paper we want. So trying to explain that to couples can be difficult and requires a lengthy explanation. And I feel like as I'm typing it, I'm like, they're not going to read all this.
Yeah.
I wish I could sum this up more, but that's why whenever people are like, just give me a ballpark, I'm like, I really can't. Like, there are so many things to consider. Yes. I wish I could. Like, I would love to be like, this is how much it's going to be before we, get started doing any work. Like, let me know right now if that's out of your budget.
Yes.
But I can't because everything is so custom and you source from different places. And so
I feel that.
So we have to do work before we're paid to do work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I actually just had someone ask me the other day, can you give me a ballpark on flowers? We haven't even started yet. I said, you can be anywhere from $3,000 to $14,000. I don't know what to tell you here. Based on the little bit you're telling me, that's kind of what I'm giving you.
Yeah.
Does that help? Not really exactly. So we have to get into it. We have to talk with a florist and talk about your wants and needs. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So yes, you're putting in a lot of thought before you even book someone, but we're happy to do that. We want to help you. But
right. It's part of the job, and we understand that.
Ballparks are just, I so feel you there. I so feel you. So we kind of are understanding that there's a lot that goes into stationery, especially invitations. So please, dear God, don't go to Angela last minute and you need invitations in a week, potentially. Right. So tell me how your process, what is your ideal timeline for invitations?
So I actually have kind of an unpopular opinion here.
Let's hear it.
So some stationers and other vendors are like, as soon as possible. If you get engaged and you're having a wedding 3 years from now, book me now. Because and I get it, like they want to know that they have work lined up. Like, it makes sense from a business standpoint. But when you're doing something in the creative space, I find that can kind of kill it a little bit.
Okay.
And makes us duplicate work sometimes.
Oh.
So for example, if you're getting married 2 years from now, you reach out to me right away. That's awesome that you already think you want to work together. Like, I'm super honored and excited. But if we're not going to be able to get started for a year or 6 months, then all the inspiration photos and everything that you sent me, it's likely to change at least a little bit. Yes. So anything, or even if it's not, I have to sit on it for 6 months and then remember the path we were going down. And it just kind of, it interrupts that design process and that creative process.
Yeah.
So I actually prefer, it's not so much about the amount of time. I would say giving us at least 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
6 months is like cutting it really close. But I would say 9 months is probably a good thing. But if you're 2 months out, or 2 months, 2 years out, but you're ready to get started on stationery, then let's talk then. We can talk right away and get started. It's just about if there's going to be dead time.
Yes.
But as far as too close, you have to keep in mind that there's going to be time required for a proposal, design, and then if we're sourcing things from different vendors, from different places, different printers, we have to find out what turnaround time is going to be on all of that. There's probably going to be some assembly. There's going to be shipping. You never know, really. There's a try to pad shipping because you never really know how long it's going to take. So, yeah, it's not something where you can reach out and be like, hey, I want to mail these in a month. Like, I think it's time for us to get started because it's a no.
No.
Please expect 3 to 4 weeks is what I tell couples for how long it typically would take from the time that we submit everything to print to the time that I'm going to be like ready to hand it over or assembling it.
Okay.
So, and that's, I mean, if you don't have any specialty print processes, if it's just like digital printing or it doesn't have any assembly really, it might be less than that, but please allow 3 to 4 weeks in your mind because if you don't, we're going to be, and sometimes people are like, well, can't we just pay to rush it? Can't we just pay to, and sometimes there's things you can't
rush.
Yeah, so.
And going along with that, you have to think about, yes, your ideal mailing date. And, you know, tell me if I'm right or wrong, or if you have thoughts on this. Ever since COVID, obviously, we know the mailing system has changed.
Yeah.
Things are slow. So the previous invitation mailing timeline is, I think, longer. So let's say usually the average RSVP date is a month before your wedding at this point. So from there, I'm saying 8 to 10 weeks before your RSVP date. Does that line up? Do you have an opinion there? Do you guide couples?
That sounds pretty good. As far as like an RSVP date, I usually ask the planner or the caterer. And
when do you need your numbers?
Play around them, And then, I mean, it also depends on, are we sending a lot internationally?
Yes.
Are we doing digital RSVPs?
Yep, those are quick.
Because that's becoming more and more popular. But I think that timeline is good.
I like it too.
Yeah.
I like it too.
Good job.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. No, because it's just crazy because you think about years ago and it used to be like 4 to 6 weeks or kind of 6 to 8, or people was always, they were honing in on that 6 weeks before. And it's like, unfortunately, you can't even guarantee things to make it now. And it's crazy because I have noticed, like, just with my own mail or sending out holiday cards or something, like if someone changes their address, I am getting the return sometimes a month or 2 later.
Yes. And that's a good point. Holidays. Is it around a holiday? Because that's going to slow it down too. There are a lot of things. And you also don't want to send them too early.
That's a thing too.
Because then people put them to the side and they think they have all this time to RSVP and then they forget. And then you get actually more people that don't RSVP in time than you would have if you would have just waited a little bit.
They lose them.
Yeah.
There's so many caveats. Okay. So we've talked about some, obviously building an invitation suite. There's a lot of things to go into that. There's a timeline that goes into that. Sometimes people want envelope liners.
Yes.
And they can be very, very beautiful. I think there are certain things, and kind of going back to Pinterest, and this looks really pretty, but things that people don't think about with envelope liners. There's an inner envelope, there's an outer envelope sometimes. I want some education on that, some thoughts. People don't think about ripping through an envelope liner and wasting kind of money. So tell me about that.
That's the biggest thing that I lead with when somebody starts with an envelope liner. I don't want to talk them out of it. I love them. They're so pretty. But I try to make sure, like, again, manage expectations. And I don't want people to have to pay for things that nobody's going to see.
Yes.
Or that, get damaged and they didn't think it through. So if they want an envelope liner, I typically recommend having an inner and outer envelope, which it's more of a traditional way of doing things. Some people aren't aware that it even exists. But basically, you would seal the outer envelope. The inner envelope would be pulled out. It would not be sealed. And they would just open it and the cards would be inside. So that way, the inner envelope liner, remains unscathed and it's easily viewed. The outer envelope is, like you said, typically like ripped from the top. So there's a good possibility that they're never going to see that liner that you paid for and we put time and thought into, and it breaks my heart.
And it just comes down to a waste of money too.
Yeah. I mean, something that could be allocated elsewhere.
Yes.
So really there are 3 options. One, do an inner outer envelope, which isn't like a huge price increase usually. So it's worth considering. Or putting an envelope liner in an RSVP envelope if they're doing a mailback RSVP. Because again, like not everybody does it anymore. But that way they're going to see it. It's going to get ripped whenever you open it, but like who cares? You know what it looks like. Your guest wants to see it. Or we may, depending on what it is, if it's just digital printing, like I said, we could get a low quantity of them and you can just bring it for flat lays for your wedding day so that you have a pretty picture.
There you go.
Or, we put it in one that you can keep yourself and save.
Yes.
So you have the completed vision, but you're not spending money on it for everybody, for all 150 suites.
There you go.
And being worried that nobody's going to see it anyway.
I like that. Those are great ideas. The RSVP envelope, that's clever.
Yeah, because I mean, people forget about the RSVP envelope.
You could do something nice with it.
Yeah, why not? It's also like a little layer of protection in there. So
all of those vintage stamps you see on Pinterest, are those a good idea for like a flat lay only type of inspiration?
I
She's like, no.
I personally only like to use them for flat lay stuff.
Okay.
Because you have to, I mean, some of those truly vintage stamps, they're worth like 3 cents.
Yeah.
So you need to get the amount that you need. Yeah. And like I said before, like if you need 150 of them, like it's going to take you forever to find these stamps.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's better that way to just use them in a pretty picture if you want. But hey, if you have the time, again, if it's not going to delay sending out your invitations, you have the budget, you're really into the stationery, we can do it. But yeah, it's just going to add a lot of time and be pricey. Like, be aware. It's going to be pricey. You're not going to pay face value for these stamps.
Yeah, no, they're like what? Again, ballpark. Can I get a ballpark? No,
I mean, there's going to be a shipping fee from every place you have to get stamps. There's going to be a sourcing fee probably.
Crazy.
I mean, you might end up paying double or more what the stamps are worth. So, yeah.
Yikes. So just think about it. Yes, we want things to look pretty, but think about your budget.
Yeah.
You have beautiful designs.
Thanks.
You have beautiful designs. You have a beautiful creative mind. So something that is not heard of, I think, is a stationer coming up with a concept for a styled shoot.
Yeah.
And you did a spectacular styled shoot earlier this year
Thank
with
you.
Allie from Wonderlust. You ran into some interesting pushback. And I'm using interesting as a nice term. First, I want you to tell me about the styled shoot. I want you to shout out the vendors that were involved, because you did a fantastic job putting that together.
Thank you so much. That means so much. Yeah, so a few years ago, everything was all about like maximal color, which I love. I mean, why would I not? But last year, I started thinking more about started pulling inspiration from like, well, what if instead of color, we start thinking about like textures and making things interesting without color. So using, white, shades of white, clear, and just making everything different textures, different materials. So I really wanted to do a styled shoot like that. And that was kind of like the design concept. And so I reached out to Allie from Wonderlust Weddings and Events.
We love you, Allie.
Them. Love Allie and Sam. And they were on board. They were super excited about it. I reached out to another friender of mine, Linnea Marie Photography. I'm obsessed with her style. And she was on board. So I was super pumped. And then we continued to reach out to other amazing vendors, like just everybody we could think of, and I'll name them in a sec. But the other thing I wanted to, the other idea I had was I followed this woman on Instagram, and she's actually from the area I'm from, so I knew her. And her name's Davina. She's an openly transgender woman. And her Instagram is just always so positive, and like she loves playing with heels and makeup and glam. And prior to transitioning, she was actually a bodybuilder and a male model. And so she has these striking blue eyes and like cheekbones and, nose or angles. And but she's never done any modeling as a woman. And so I just thought it would be really fun to see if she would want to come and be a bride model for the shoot. And obviously, I wanted to see how she felt about it first. And she was thrilled. She was so excited. I was so pumped. I was like, you're going to kill it. So we got her involved, and everybody was even more excited. Like, this is so cool. This is something that we don't see enough of in styled shoots, like people of diversity.
Yes.
So we got her involved. Everything came together smoothly and beautifully. Like I said, Allie from Wanderlust, the whole Wanderlust team was there, which is amazing.
That's awesome.
Linnea Marie Photography did such a beautiful job with the photos. Tyler Newpole did the videography. He made a kick-ass teaser video. Who else we had? Oh, Alex Roba did the cakes, mini cakes, big cake, and he also has Twig and Vine Floral, and so he did all the florals too. Like, talk about a one-man show.
Yeah,
he's incredible. He's such an artist. And Christy from Simply Captivating Salons did the hair. She's the hair queen. Bow down to her. Oh my God. I was so thrilled that she agreed. For makeup, actually, Davina knew NYCT Studio. I was aware of them too. And they had done her makeup before. So I was like, awesome. I'll reach out. They were thrilled to get involved. So they were involved. Gemma Bridal provided the dress, the veil, and the jewelry.
Love it.
I love Emma. She's amazing. She was so wonderful to work with at the day that we picked everything. She's just so comforting, and you just feel so comfortable with her. Who else? Christian Jones was our groom model. He was fantastic. And it was at Winter Garden. Okay. Yeah. So super, super cool.
What a team.
What a team.
What a team.
It was so much fun because, I've participated in a bunch of styled shoots, but people have never asked me direction on all the things. Oh, and we had all occasions and Party Mosaic for rentals and linens.
Okay.
So yeah, it was fun. But then came time to publish. And I figured we'd get a little bit of pushback, but I was surprised how much we did get. And it was the way people worded it.
What'd they say?
It was something along the lines of the shoot is gorgeous, the photos are beautiful, but I don't think our readers would understand, or I don't think our readers would relate. And it was just in my mind,
because there was a transgender woman bride model.
That's the way I took it. Because nobody said anything specific about the design, the style of the shoot, or the anything about the design of it.
Yeah.
And I was just so taken aback. Because isn't that the whole point? You do styled shoots to show new, refreshing things. And I just couldn't believe that in 2024, that's where we're at.
That's very disheartening.
Yeah.
That's very sad.
Yeah. So I was getting frustrated, but then I had coffee with Victoria from Berg Brides because I love her to death. She's actually she's the reason that I got into this industry, really, because she published my sister's wedding before I was in weddings, and I did her stationery, and overnight I started getting inquiries for stationery.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I guess we're going to try this. And I've never looked back. So yeah, I love Victoria. I owe a lot to her. And late in the coffee date, I was like, yeah, I just did this styled shoot. I was super proud of it. But we're trying to get it published and we're getting like pushback. And she was like, well, let me see the photos. Like maybe I could give you some feedback. And she was like, this is beautiful. Like I would be happy to publish this. And I was like, thank you.
That's awesome.
So yeah, she did. She, and it was well received. And I was super excited about that.
Yes.
But yeah, it put a bad taste in my mouth for a little bit about
the other publications.
Because we were trying at first to not go straight for like LGBTQIA only publications. We were trying to get it a little more mainstream because that's the whole point, right? You want it to be...
Absolutely.
You want everybody to see it as mainstream. But yeah, it people were a little afraid, I think.
Newsflash, publications, there are transgender people that are getting married. Duh. Because they're people.
Yeah.
To ostracize like that and to not accept, I am sorry. That's frustrating. You did a wonderful job to do something that unfortunately isn't seen enough. It was a beautiful style shoot. Everyone involved is fantastic. And yes, Victoria, shout out to Berg Brides for accepting it. And,
love her.
Because you're the best too. Angela, it has just been spectacular speaking with you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming on the cookie table. Angela Pro Design, angelaprodesign.com for anyone looking for all stationery needs. This is your gal. Thank you again.
Thanks.
Hey.